Is he alive or dead? Has he thoughts within his head? Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and I apologize for the possibly obscure intro for some of you guys, but hopefully you guys recognize the lyrics of Iron Man by Black Sabbath. RIP to Ozzy Osbourne, unfortunately, as of just filming this video, but it felt kind of appropriate because we are going to be talking about Iron Twins. Now, I know many of you guys think that Iron Twins is difficult, or many people think that Iron Twins is not worth farming. I am here to tell you that for my free-to-play, we're still nearing 200 days of progress, and I have made a lot of progress. One of the key things that helped me nearly win the Hell Hades free-to-play tournament, keep a huge lead as number 2, and has kept me on top of doing the things I want to do. It has been because I have been farming Iron Twins. And more importantly too, I've just been pulling my souls for the most part. Every once in a while, if I find out there's an event, I will certainly save my souls, but I am not quite at a point on this account yet where I feel like I absolutely need 6-star souls, because there are so many champions that I have 0-star souls for, or 1-star souls for, or 2-star souls. So I think early on, it is best to just yeet your soul stones. But even if you're not going to just yeet your soul stones, you're going to save them for some of these extra events, which to be fair is not the worst thing to do either. So maybe I'm a little wrong on that. I don't know. There's certainly a point where you should change from yeeting constantly to holding off and using them for tools for various Decks of Fates events or other stuff like that. But regardless, farming Iron Twins is honestly one of the more important dungeons in the game, and it's very hard to say how important it is, because there is definitely a lot of RNG and getting good souls for your champions. But when you get a good soul for a champion that you use, or better yet, a good champion that you use, it makes a huge difference in the power of that champion. So we're going to talk about a team that can beat Iron Twins Stage 15. It's fairly accessible, but I'm going to talk about substitutions as well, because I realize not everybody's going to have every champion that I've got here, but a couple of them are pretty easy to get. So let's hop into Iron Twins and go take a look at it. So here is my Iron Twins team for Stage 15. It has been 100% on Stage 15 so far. To be fair, I have only run a total of 12 runs against Iron Twins against various different affinities, but it has been 100% against every affinity. There is a difference when I use Force versus any of the other affinities, and I can certainly show you that, but it's a pretty simple one to talk about. But this has been my team. Now, before you turn this off and say, I don't have Geomancer, I don't have Brogni, even I don't have Alice as possible, I'm going to talk about who you can replace in any of these slots, why they are there, why they are helpful, but also what you can replace. You'll notice I didn't say who doesn't have Syl, because honestly you should have Syl, because Syl is a free champion. She's not even fully built yet. I mean, she's, level 55, she's got all her masteries. She is not fully booked as of this moment, and it runs perfectly fine without her fully booked. It is better with her fully booked, and I'll talk about why, but regardless, Syl is great. Syl is almost required for this one. There are substitutions for her. And then Mithrala, another champion you can earn in Hydra. Not even that hard to earn in Hydra. I've had Mithrala for 40 some odd days, and she has been a godsend to this account and does a lot of work for you. And then Alice is great. But for example, on Force, I use Tholan instead, because Alice would weak hit where Tholan won't, and having an extra Force champion against the boss is better, because the boss puts out more debuffs, more of his, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the iron something or other debuff, that as it builds up, he starts to do things like ignore more defense, hit harder, stuff like that. And he puts more of those out, the more off affinity champions you have in a particular fight. But for Void, there's not a lot of options, at least on this account at the moment, so this team works just fine. For Spirit, since most people are positive affinity, that's actually just fine, because they're going to weak hit half the time anyway. Mithrala's got plenty of resistance because of the way her passive works, so she's going to ignore a lot of that stuff anyway, which is great. And then Geomancer, he places the burns. So Geomancer, of course, being an absolute amazing champion for this because of his Quicksand Grasp build. Of course, he gets the HP burn and the weaken, and he reflects damage based off of people that have that HP burn. And reflect damage is great, but the HP burn is kind of important as well. HP burn does damage every time the boss takes a turn, and one of the mechanics of the Iron Twins boss is when he passes certain damage thresholds, he will do an extra counterattack and cleanse. And if you can get him to pass those thresholds with a reflect damage, such as the quicksand grasp right here, but honestly, it also works with Brogni's reflect is the same type of thing as well, obviously. But it works with burns, it works with poison damage, it works with any of those things. So burns and poison damage are some of the better ways to do damage to Iron Twins. Now they can be slow, so it helps to have some direct damage as well. That's part of why Alice is on the team or Tholen is on the team, because they smack particularly hard. But regardless, having some direct damage in the team works. So if you don't have a Geomancer, you could use a Cold Heart, would probably be just fine. You'd have to worry a little bit more about triggering some of that stuff. A Newt would probably work just fine if you've got Newts. Any max HP hitter would probably be fine. Venomage would be another good option as well. Venomage has decreased attack, which can certainly help make it easier to survive the boss, as well as giving you some additional benefits from the poisons and a damage reduction effect, because that's one of the things that Geomancer does as well, is he does reduce the amount of damage you take because he reflects it and cuts it down as well. Syl is great because we have the Boundless Life passive. So her passive basically says whenever she takes a turn, she is going to give increased speed to somebody at random. You're not really speed tuning this team, so it's not a big deal. And she heals 10% of everybody's max HP at the start of their turn. She is in Relentless gear, so she is taking extra turns. You know, she gets 18% chance to take an extra turn. So basically 1 in every 5 turns, she gets an extra turn, but she can get more than 1 extra turn, and that is super helpful. Plus she does have the revive. If somebody dies, that is certainly nice to be able to pick somebody back up. That is one of the things, these stacks that build up, they build up until you die. So if you die and somebody revives, that person generally has a slightly newer lease on life because they don't have all those iron stacks on them. So that is very helpful. Brogni, again, brings somebody reflect. He also brings shields. Shields are a great way to keep your team alive. So he gives you the shield, he gives you block debuffs. Says this boss will put decrease attack and decrease defense on you. Having block debuffs is huge. So if you don't have Brogni, well, you could certainly use another block debuff champion. You could certainly use another shielder. You could use another cleanser. And of course, Brogni does also do a little bit of cleansing with this skill as well. He can technically remove buffs, but there's not a lot of buffs going on in this fight, and I don't have enough accuracy on him to remove the buffs, so that is fine. And then finally, he's got an HP burn. I don't have enough accuracy to land it, but if you need an HP burn, Brogni can bring that if you don't have a Geomancer. However, again, I don't have a lot of accuracy on him because I don't want him to trump Geomancer's burn, because I use the pair of them quite a bit. Mithrala, very, very good. Honestly, she is better for this skill right here. And in fact, I'm surprised I don't have this turned off. I am going to turn this off right now. Increased attack, increased defense are not bad. Hex doesn't really do much in this particular fight. The reason that there is a good reason to turn this off is because one of the boss mechanics is if this boss doesn't have decreased speed on them, when you buff your champions, every buff gives him some turn meter boost. So using this one gives a bunch of turn meter boost, does a little bit of damage, and puts a hex up. Now, if you have decreased speed, which again, one of the reasons Syl is great for this, Syl puts decreased speed up on the A1, 20% chance, 30% chance with this book, up to 40% chance. It's not a huge amount, but pretty much she's doing this unless she's doing a revive because you've turned off the stun, because the stun's not going to be effective. And there's a good chance you can get decreased speed on the boss for a little while at least and not have to worry about it as much. But for Mithrala, we are looking for, not for the Hex, but we are looking for a bunch of the poisons. The poisons are going to do tick damage that are going to help against the boss. They are going to make the boss take some damage, maybe let him not get that retaliatory attack, and they become a great damage source. As well as you can see she does have Brimstone, as does Syl, as does Alice. Brimstone on at least one champion that has enough accuracy to land it, or has a 6-star blessing, it doesn't need it. Very, very helpful for you as well. So finally, she has an AoE cleanse cleanse, an additional shield, and strengthen, so you take significant reduced damage. 25% less damage, and a very chunky shield based off this champion's max HP is huge. And again, for this particular team, it pairs really well with Brogni, meaning that Mithrala and Brogni are certainly going to alternate just a little bit what they do. The other thing I want to make sure I do is I do not want Mithrala to be opening with this Brimming Silex, because I want to have this cleanse available when a cleanse is necessary. So we're going to leave this as the lead A1 because she should be faster than the boss at 251 speed. Now the boss here is 250 speed, so anybody that is faster than 250 is going to go before the boss. So Brogni is not going before the boss, Syl is going before the boss, Geomancer is not, and Alice is not in this particular team here. So that's fine. That works out particularly well. For Mithrala, again, it actually helps to get these extra things out there because you get some poisons out there, get a little bit of poison damage. You might get Brimstone out there, could be good. Same with Syl, you could get a Brimstone, you could get decreased speed out there, probably not a bad idea. It wouldn't hurt if Brogni was faster, but as you can see, he's not, so it works perfectly fine. He'll just get his block debuffs out there, he'll get a bunch of other stuff out there, he'll eventually cleanse. It works fairly well. It's not very specifically speed tuned. So who can you replace in this one? And again, we do talk about Alice. In Alice's case, I've turned off her Cyclone because she doesn't do the decreased turn meter. This boss is immune to decreased turn meter, so the turn meter decrease does not actually help. So either I want her to do this, ignore a bunch of extra defense on the boss when she attacks, so this can actually smack really hard, or I want her to do the Vorpal Sword. And in general, I want the Vorpal Sword to not be the very first thing she does, just because she'll get an extra attack once the boss has any skill on cooldown, which he will once he takes a turn. So, you know, and those two be combined, it's debatable which one does a little bit more damage because the multipliers on Vorpal Sword are actually fairly good for a triple hitter. But I kind of like to just do this. This is reliable. It does what I want it to do, and it works well enough. And I don't have to worry about which one is slightly better. I just kind of assume that this one does enough damage to make it useful. So accuracy wise, you're looking for about 350 accuracy for floor 15. They have dropped the necessary accuracy quite a bit. So 350 is really all you need. Boss, again, is be 250. He doesn't quite hit as hard as he used to, but you'll notice a lot of this team is actually built around tankiness. Geomancer mitigates a little bit of damage. Yes, he puts the weaken up, which is kind of nice for extra damage, and the burns and the reflect, but you know, he also has the damage mitigation, which is why Geomancer is amazing. Syl is all about the healing, the ability to revive if you need it. Brogni gives you some additional healing as well as reflection off of the shield, so that is very helpful. And then Mithrala bringing a second shield means I should have a shield up almost all the time, which is going to give me some additional survivability, and then Brogni reflects the damage from that as well. So again, other shield champions would be just fine. Other poisoners would be just fine. Venomage, for example, is a great option for this particular boss because Venomage is going to bring 2 poisons. She's going to bring the heal reduction, which actually has a damage reduction passive built into her kit. And then she is going to have decreased attack and decreased defense on her A2. So she's going to, you know, give you a chance to get even reduced damage and do more damage against the boss as well, maybe making the run a little bit faster. And finally, she'll be popping some poisons, which means between her and Mithrala, you should have enough poisons up there to pop, which would be very good as well. You could certainly use a Lydia. Lydia will give you the decreased speed, which could be very, very good for taking more turns. She'll give you a strengthen. She gives you the decreased defense, and she gives you the weaken. All very, very good abilities. So Lydia would certainly be an interesting option for support here as well. Ugo would be a great one. Ugo is going to give you a heal with a cleanse, which is certainly very good. She's going to give you decreased defense as well as block buffs. Block buffs not being as important, but very, very helpful as well. Champions like that are going to be helpful. Rector Drath can be very good. A lot of what you're going to swap in here, if you don't have these champions, are going to be either a couple of other champions that might do damage. So you can certainly swap somebody other than Alice to do damage. I kind of like Alice because she's in that sweet spot with the way my account is built right now, of she does enough damage to be a good damage dealer, but not enough to kick this boss into a gear where he's going to be taking multiple turns in a row because he's taking too much damage. So, you know, use that as you will. Again, Tholen, very good as well. But it could be any damage dealer, and particularly if it's a damage dealer that has Brimstone, that is even better. If you, you know, didn't get Alice for whatever reason, Lemonisi would actually probably be very, very good for this as well. Her debuffs are not going to be great, but you're probably going to build her with some accuracy because those debuffs can be helpful in other other content, and she'll be a good damage dealer with a 5-star blessing eventually, assuming you get Lemonisi. The blessings do help, but again, if you have blessing on Mithrala, you're going to get Brimstone from Mithrala, hopefully, and if you're going to get Brimstone from Syl as well, one of the two of them having Brimstone is all you need to make this team really, really tick. So we've talked about the setups on this team, what you're looking for. You're definitely not looking for champions that throw tons of buffs on there, despite the fact I'm talking about shields being very, very useful to keeping your team alive. Flat healing is good as well. That's where Rector Drath can be very helpful. She brings a ton of healing, plus the Veils will mitigate some damage as well, because that's how perfect Veils work. Duchess would be just fine. She's going to mitigate a lot of the AoE damage just being there as well. As far as your lead is concerned, if you don't have enough accuracy, Mithrala can give all your champions plenty of accuracy with an 80% aura. I chose to have the 25% HP because I wanted enough tankable HP to make sure everyone was alive first and foremost, and from there then we're worried about the damage. So that is the team. As you can see, the stats are not super inaccessible. Geomancer 360 accuracy, not too hard. Speed of 218, not unreasonable. He is built kind of tanky, but he does some damage on him, but nothing particularly exciting because he's not built for crit damage. Brogni, it does have crit rate and crit on him, so he has got some crit damage. I've got crit rate gloves on him just because I could in this particular build, but honestly, you're fine if you don't have some of that stuff. None of them need special gear, other than I recommend Syl get built in Relentless gear, assuming you can. Again, Syl's got plenty of accuracy. Mithrala, again, plenty of accuracy, and that's going to give her enough resistance. I mentioned you need 350 accuracy. You're going to need about 450 resistance to be able to resist the boss. And if you can resist the boss, that's going to make this run even easier because you're not going to get decreased defense on you, and you're not going to get some of those iron stacks, which is going to make it easier for you to survive. And then finally, Alice is built for damage. She's got 250 crit damage, 208 speed, good amount of attack. I believe I got a Cat's Gaze on her as well, and she's got Helm Smasher for the mastery. Everyone else has got War Master because War Master is going to give me the most additional damage against this boss, except for Brogni, who has Giant Slayer, because Giant Slayer works with his reflect damage better to give you the Giant Slayer procs on that reflect damage. So let's save the team because I did make a change to it, and we're going to run the team. This team runs in about a minute and a half, give or take. It is not particularly long if you don't have all the extra reflect damage that I have. And of course, Brimstone adds, you saw the Brimstone there did 260,000 damage. That was actually a good chunk of damage here. So we've got the shields going. We've got, none of the buffs up. And for the most part, we're just kind of reflecting damage and doing damage passively as much as we can against this boss. This is where packing up poisons are going to be very helpful. If you have champions that ignite poisons, so like a Theodore would actually be really, really good against this boss because you want to load him up with a bunch of poisons. You'll have poison sensitivity as well, and then Teo can trigger those poisons and do a ton of damage as well. That also means that, things like the Arachne Elixir, which could be very, very helpful for you, could be very helpful in this fight as well to help melt this boss down a bit as well. You do want to be careful about doing too much damage in too big of a chunks, because if he takes the right amount of damage, he will jump his turn and actually cleanse himself, lose all of his debuffs, and be done. In this particular build, though, he doesn't, because, between the reflected damage and the damage he takes on his turn, which is where a lot of this damage is coming from, he's not getting to a point where he needs to trigger his I need to cleanse myself passive. And 1 minute and 18 seconds later, we've gotten through stage 15. As you can see here, Geomancer is certainly the MVP of damage, but still doing a chunk of damage right there. A lot of that is going to be War Master procs. I'm sure she probably landed the Brimstone. If she didn't, Mithrala did, but Mithrala also had the poisons, so I suspect Syl got one of the Brimstone procs as well. Alice actually doing a okay amount of damage, but less than Mithrala, less than Syl. It's kind of nice. And Brogni, yeah, he didn't do tons of damage, but you'll see he got a bunch of healing done. So between him and Syl, we had a ton of healing, and really nobody was ever in danger. So I've built teams like this for other people. Now you'll see some of the speed teams with like Emic, or some of the teams that are Geomancer and block damage. You don't need to run those as much anymore. It used to be the boss hit so hard and did so much damage that one of the best ways to do it was an unkillable team that was absolutely just going to sit there and take it and not really worry about it. Now, he's been nerfed just enough with some of the stats where you can get to him with much easier and much more accessible stats, so you can farm this dungeon easier, and you can you don't need to do billions upon billions of damage to be able to get your rewards from Iron Twins. So that is my Iron Twins team. It works well. It has been honestly not particularly high investment. All of those champions are champions I'm using in other content with the builds I'm using in other content as well. Because it is not perfectly speed tuned, I'm not really worried about ruining it because I have to rebuild a champion for something else. And it's effective. So hopefully that is a team that you guys can build and can tackle with. And if you can't farm Iron Twins 15, that's fine. Just move up to stage 12. Move up to stage 9. Honestly, I use farming stage 6 and stage 9 on my low-level account for a long time because I felt that it was so worthwhile to be farming Iron Twins. But Iron Twins is not as daunting as you might think he is, particularly if you build for a reasonable amount of speed, such as the 200 plus speeds that you saw me there. You get yourself some Brimstone blessings as well, which I realized that you kind of need to farm that to get the blessings to be able to farm it. But, you know, so there's champions you can get these blessings for free, like Lemonisi. Lemonisi, you are going to be able to get that 5-star soul. It's hiding right behind me, but you know, see the 4-star right here? There is a 5-star right behind me. I swear it's there, honestly. But honestly, you'll already have a 3-star soul or even a 2-star soul on Lemonisi. That'll give you the Brimstone you need to run Lemonisi against the boss as well. Build Lemonisi for some decent damage. She'll be a reasonable progression champion for you as far as damage is concerned, and she'll give you an Iron Twins option as well. And you know what? If this is sometime in the future where there's new login champions or other things available that you've gotten souls for, there's a good chance if your login champion has any kind of accuracy that needs to land any kind of debuffs and can get Brimstone, you'll get a decent soul for them and you'll be able to use them in Iron Twins, because the Brimstone is, which, you know, was more than all but one of the champions actually did combined. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. I love making these kind of videos where I can show you accessible teams. And yeah, it's not always the most accessible because not all you guys have a Geomancer, not all you guys have a Brogni, but I've given you plenty of examples of champions you can swap in there, and the only disadvantage you're going to have is it's probably going to run just a little bit longer. But if you got your champions built well, you know, with the stats that you saw there, and that was the stats in Iron Twins, so I'm not using any Great Hall shenanigans or anything like that, you too can farm Iron Twins at a pretty reasonable investment with champions that you're going to want to build and use in other content. So I appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful day, and until the next video, I am Bront CatHerder.